Alex Porter wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking for peace. After 15 grueling years in the corporate world, he'd finally cashed out, sold everything, and bought his dream property, a secluded lake retreat nestled in a quiet HOA-controlled community 2 hours outside the city. Surrounded by towering pines and mirrored waters, the place looked like something out of a postcard. An old wooden dock jutted into the lake, and a weathered boathouse sat at the edge like a loyal old dog watching the shore. For the first time in his adult life, Alex could breathe. No alarms, no meetings, just him, the water, and a fridge stocked with beer. He had barely unloaded his truck when he heard the crunch of gravel behind him. Turning, he saw a woman walking briskly toward him. Slim, sharply dressed in a beige pantsuit, her eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses, clipboard in hand. Even before she spoke, Alex felt a shift in the air, like the lake itself held its breath. "Mr. Porter, I presume." Her voice was smooth, polite, and unmistakably condescending. Alex nodded, offering a friendly smile. "That's me. Just moved in this morning." She didn't return the smile. "I'm Susan Whitmore, president of the Lake Pine Estates HOA. I like to greet all new residents personally. Helps maintain the standards of our community." Alex wiped his hands on his jeans. "Well, I appreciate that. It's a beautiful place." "It is, and we intend to keep it that way." She stepped closer and began scribbling something on her clipboard. Her gaze moved over the house, the dock, the way Alex had parked slightly on the grass. "You're aware of the community handbook?" she asked. "Skimmed it," Alex said casually. "Skimming isn't compliance." He paused, unsure if she was joking. Her expression said she wasn't. Susan walked past him without permission and circled the side of the house, peering into windows and noting measurements like she was preparing an audit. Alex followed, uneased but not yet alarmed. She stopped at the dock, frowning. "This is an unapproved structure." Alex raised an eyebrow. "It came with the property. It's been here for decades." "Then it's decades out of compliance." Before Alex could respond, Susan pivoted, heading back toward the road. "You'll be receiving a formal welcome packet. Read it thoroughly. Your grass is an inch too long. Your trash bins are visible from the street, and that dock will need to be removed pending review. Enjoy your evening." She walked off as swiftly as she arrived, her heels snapping on the gravel like a judge's gavel. Alex stood alone, the sun casting long shadows across the lake. His peaceful escape had lasted exactly 27 minutes. He didn't know it yet, but Susan Whitmore had just lit the match, and it was only a matter of time before everything went up in flames. The next morning, Alex found a thick envelope wedged into his mailbox. No postage, no sender name, just his address written in stiff, perfect handwriting. Inside, a glossy HOA welcome packet, a fine for $150, and a checklist titled, "Urgent Violations. Immediate compliance required." The list read like satire. Asterisk porch light exceeds 800 lumens. Asterisk grass exceeds 2.5-inch length regulation. Asterisk trash bins not screened from public view. Asterisk unauthorized dock structure. Asterisk improper curtain color visible from exterior. He stared at the paper, dumbfounded. The curtain color. He looked around. The neighboring houses all had the same kind of drapes, driveways, even flower beds, like someone had copied and pasted the same house a dozen times. Alex's place was older, more rustic, not as manicured. But that was why he bought it. Apparently, Susan saw it as a threat. Shrugging it off, he tackled the basics. He mowed the lawn, repositioned the trash bins behind the shed, and dimmed the porch light. He ignored the curtain comment. That was absurd. But the dock, that one stuck. That afternoon, he left a polite message with the HOA office requesting a review of the dock's status. He even offered to repair any safety issues if needed. The next day, another envelope appeared. Request denied. Immediate removal required. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in further fines. No signature, just that same cold, typed format. 3 hours later, Susan appeared again. This time, she didn't come alone. 2 men in HOA-issued polo shirts trailed behind her, holding measuring tape and clipboards. They moved across his property like they owned it, ignoring Alex's protests as they measured the distance between his fence and fire pit. "What exactly are you doing?" he asked, trying to remain calm. "Routine inspection," Susan replied, her tone neutral but her eyes gleaming. "We've received anonymous complaints about non-compliant fixtures." Anonymous, huh? Let me guess. Was it from someone wearing beige and carrying a clipboard? One of the men snorted. Susan shot him a look. Alex stepped between her and the dock. "I'm not removing this. It's stable, it's safe, and it's on the original deed." Susan didn't blink. "Then I suggest you prepare for daily fines. They compound." "You know," Alex said, voice low, "most people who move out here are looking for peace. Maybe you should try it sometime." Susan leaned in just enough for only him to hear. "I maintain peace, and peace means control." She turned and walked off with her entourage, leaving boot prints in the dirt. That night, Alex sat on the dock, staring at the moon's reflection on the water, trying to shake the unease crawling up his spine. It wasn't just about rules. It wasn't even about power. It felt personal. And as the wind whispered through the trees, something strange caught his eye on the porch, his overturned trash bins, and a folded note pinned beneath a rock. Written in red ink, "This lake belongs to the rules." By the next morning, Alex had reread the red ink note at least a dozen times. This lake belongs to the rules. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a promise. Determined to find out who he was really dealing with, Alex began visiting his neighbors, not the ones with pristine lawns and fake smiles, but the ones who kept their blinds drawn and spoke in hushed tones. The first knock led him to Marla Vance, a widow in her 60s with tired eyes and a cluttered porch. She eyed him through the screen for a full minute before unhooking it. "You're the new guy by the boathouse," she said, voice dry. "I am. Just wanted to introduce myself. And maybe ask a question." She didn't respond, just gestured to the rusted patio chair beside her. Alex sat, explaining what had happened since his arrival, the violations, the clipboard inspections, the note. He didn't mention the fires Susan was hinting at. Not yet. Marla listened quietly, then took a slow drag of her cigarette. "You know about Rick?" she asked. "Who's Rick?" She flicked ash onto the porch rail. "Used to own your place. Retired vet. Came out here for the same reasons you did. Peace, quiet, some fishing. Then Susan decided she didn't like the color of his mailbox. It all started from there." Alex leaned forward. "What happened?" He fought back. Took the HOA to court over bogus fines. 1, 2. Then one night, his cabin caught fire. Fire chief said it was faulty wiring. She paused. Funny thing is, Rick had rewired the place himself the year before. Military-grade stuff. No way it was accidental. And Susan. No charges, no suspicion. Rick left town right after that. Never saw him again. A long silence passed between them. "There's more," she added. 2 other families left after disputes. One lady's tires were slashed. Another had her water shut off for a week. All while Susan smiled at every HOA meeting like nothing happened. Alex felt a chill crawl down his back. Why doesn't anyone speak up? Because she owns half the board, and she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. Marla stubbed out her cigarette. "You want to last here, son. Keep your head down, or leave before she burns more than your trash bins." Alex thanked her and walked home slowly, the breeze off the lake no longer feeling refreshing, just cold. Later that evening, he checked the security cameras he'd installed discreetly around the house. The one facing the driveway blinked. Motion detected. 3:14 a.m. He hit play. The screen flickered, and there she was. Susan, alone, standing by his dock in the dead of night. She didn't touch anything, didn't move. She just stood there, watching the house, for 23 minutes. Then she turned and walked back into the woods. Alex stared at the screen, jaw tight. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was war. It started with the smell. At 2:43 a.m., Alex bolted upright in bed, heart racing. Something was wrong. A sharp, acrid scent clung to the air like burnt plastic and pine. Then came the orange glow through the curtains. He rushed to the window. The boathouse was on fire. Flames clawed through the old timber, reaching high into the black sky. Sparks rained down like embers from hell. For a second, Alex just stood there, stunned. Then instincts kicked in. Barefoot, he sprinted outside, grabbing a garden hose that might as well have been a squirt gun. The fire was already out of control. His dock crackled, the heat so intense it peeled paint off the siding of the main cabin. Neighbors began appearing on their porches, murmuring, phones in hand. No one moved to help. No one got close. He heard sirens in the distance. Too far. Too late. By the time the fire trucks arrived, the boathouse was ash, the dock was gone, and part of the cabin's porch had blackened under a wave of heat and smoke. The firefighters contained it, barely saving the rest of the home. Alex stood at the edge of the driveway, fists clenched, smoke curling into the sky like the tail of a demon. Susan arrived 10 minutes after the flames were out. She was dressed impeccably, not a hair out of place, as if the entire event had been penciled into her calendar. She walked straight to the fire chief and began speaking in her usual clipped tone. Alex couldn't hear the words, but he could read the body language. Concern painted on her face, but satisfaction in her eyes. She spotted Alex and walked over slowly. "What a tragedy," she said, almost breathlessly. "So unfortunate. These older structures are fire hazards, you know. That boathouse should have been removed when we asked." Alex didn't answer. He just stared at her. There was soot on his hands, smoke in his throat, and murder in his eyes. "You should really consider building something more compliant," she added. He took a breath. "You said it." "Excuse me. I've got cameras. You were here 2 nights ago, staring at it, like you were measuring it in your head." Her smile didn't falter. "I enjoy late walks. They help me think. It's not illegal to walk past your property." Alex stepped forward, lowering his voice. "But it is illegal to commit arson. And if you think I'm going to roll over and let you torch what's mine, think again." She leaned in, smile fading just slightly. "Careful, Mr. Porter. Accusations without proof. That's how people disappear around here." And with that, she turned and walked away, heels clicking on scorched earth. But Alex didn't follow. He didn't shout. He walked straight into his half-burned home, pulled out his backup hard drive from the camera system, the one stored in a fireproof box, and smiled. She'd lit the match. Now it was his turn. By sunrise, the lake was quiet again. The fire had reduced his boathouse to a blackened outline, a skeleton of what once was peace. But Alex Porter wasn't mourning anymore. He was planning. First, he made 3 copies of the security footage. The one showing Susan standing by his dock at 3:14 a.m., he saved them to separate flash drives, encrypted and labeled. One he hid inside a waterproof case beneath a loose floorboard. The second went into a safety deposit box in town. The third he sent to a lawyer friend back in the city. No explanation, just a note that read, "If anything happens to me, release this to the press." Susan had expected him to run scared. She was about to see what happened when the wrong man got pushed too far. Over the next 2 days, Alex played the part. Quiet, cooperative, even showed up to the emergency HOA meeting Susan called about the unfortunate blaze at Lot 14. She stood at the front of the small clubhouse, delivering condolences with the same energy she might use to discuss hedge trimming. The room smelled like citrus disinfectant and artificial calm. Alex sat in the back, arms folded, watching the board nod in synchronized obedience. She ended the meeting with a thinly veiled warning. All homeowners should ensure compliance with fire safety standards. Ignorance does not excuse negligence. We want to avoid further incidents. That was it. No investigation. No concern. Just blame, delicately delivered with a smile. After the meeting, Alex quietly approached two neighbors who had stayed unusually silent, a retired mechanic named Greg and a reclusive artist named Anna. Both had once owned non-conforming properties. Both had been fined into submission. And both, when Alex showed them the footage of Susan outside his house in the middle of the night, went pale. "She did the same to me," Greg whispered. "Not fire, but my garage." She claimed it violated setback laws. Came by twice. Week later, it collapsed in the middle of the night. Said it was old wood. Thing was only 5 years old. Donna just nodded slowly. She has friends. People who owe her. People who like control. Alex leaned in. "Help me. Not to fight her by the book. That won't work. I want to take her apart. With her own rules." Greg smirked. "You want to beat her at her own HOA game." Alex nodded. "No. I want to burn the whole game down." That night, while Susan slept in her picture-perfect home at the top of the cul-de-sac, Alex was awake, cross-checking bylaws, investigating the land deed histories, reviewing financial reports from the HOA's publicly filed documents. And that's when he found it, a signature on an old property variance. Forged by Susan. It was a small crack in a massive dam. But all cracks lead to floods. By Monday, Alex had memorized the HOA bylaws like scripture. He didn't read them to follow the rules. He read them to weaponize them. Every clause, every contradiction, every outdated, overlooked line. And that forged signature he'd found. It wasn't just a smoking gun. It was a hand grenade with the pin halfway out. Susan had submitted a variance 6 years ago to build her backyard meditation garden. It included a gazebo, koi pond, and a privacy wall that technically encroached 6 feet into protected HOA green space. The variance had been approved by the board, but the original landowner's signature had been faked. Alex confirmed it by tracking the man down, a retired landscaper named Delroy, now living in Arizona. One phone call and a scanned notarized affidavit later, Alex had legal proof. Susan Whitmore had committed a HOA fraud. He didn't go to the police. He went to the homeowners. One by one, Alex visited the houses along the lake, even the manicured ones, even the ones that had smiled and looked away. He showed them the affidavit, the forgery, the surveillance footage of Susan lurking near his dock days before the fire. He didn't ask them to fight. He asked them to vote. Call an emergency board election, he told them. Section 4.2c of the bylaws. We can force one with a 25% homeowner petition. Most were scared. Some were indifferent. But then, they started whispering. Greg and Dana spread the word like wildfire. Within 48 hours, Alex had 42% of the neighborhood signatures. The petition was filed, legally, forcing a mandatory board meeting and election review within 7 days. Susan didn't react publicly. No threats. No fines. Not even a note. But the day after the petition was filed, Alex found a dead koi fish in a plastic bag nailed to his front door. No message. No signature. Just the stench. She knew. So did he. But Alex wasn't scared. He was ahead. He filed an anonymous tip with the county zoning office, attaching the forged variance and photos of her garden structures. A compliance inspector was now scheduled to review the meditation area within 72 hours. By week's end, Susan was about to be buried under the very rulebook she'd enforced like gospel. Still, Alex didn't relax. He didn't celebrate. Not yet. because he hadn't even played his final card. That night, he received a message from Marla, the widow on the edge of town. She'd found something in her attic, an old metal box belonging to her late husband, who had once served on the HOA board years before Susan took power. Inside, meeting notes, voice recordings, and a sealed envelope labeled, "Whitmore, do not trust her." Alex opened it, and what he found inside would make the fire look like a warm-up act. The envelope Marla gave Alex was brittle with age, sealed with yellowing tape. Inside, he found 3 things: a faded photograph, a typewritten letter, and a cassette tape labeled Board Session, June 9, Closed Meeting. The photo was of a group of people standing by the lake, early HOA board members. In the back, unmistakably younger, was Susan Whitmore. The letter, written by Marla's husband, then the board treasurer, described something chilling. Susan threatened to expose the board's illegal land deal unless they handed her control. She knew about the Greenbelt kickbacks. When Carl refused, his dock mysteriously collapsed, nearly killing him. I believe she orchestrated it. She's not just controlling, she's dangerous. Alex's hands trembled as he loaded the cassette into an old tape deck Marla had also provided. Static, then voices. Male. "This isn't right, Susan. We should vote." Susan, calm, cold. "You already voted when you took the money, Carl. If this gets out, we all go down. But if you give me what I want, no one needs to know." Male. "You're bluffing." Susan, "Am I? Then why is your signature already on the zoning request?" The tape clicked off. Alex leaned back, stunned. This wasn't just abuse of power. Susan had extorted her way into control and covered it with fire, fear, and fines for over a decade. And now, thanks to this recording, she couldn't hide anymore. The emergency board meeting came that Friday night in the community center, a beige box of a room with uncomfortable chairs and flickering overhead lights. But the room was full. Word had spread fast. Susan entered like a queen, crisp suit, immaculate hair, but something in her eyes had changed. She scanned the room and saw something she hadn't seen in years: doubt. And worse, disloyalty. Alex waited until she finished her opening remarks, a condescending dismissal of the recent misinformation campaign led by Mr. Porter. Then he stood up. "I'd like to play a recording for the homeowners," he said, holding up a small speaker. Susan's smile tightened. "That is not authorized under Section 7.3b. Alex interrupted. "Permits any homeowner to present evidence regarding the conduct of board members during a vote for removal." She froze, and Alex hit play. The voice of a younger Susan filled the room. The threats, the blackmail, the silence that followed was electric. A dozen jaws slack, a few eyes wide. Then whispers. Someone stood and said, "I move to remove Susan Whitmore from her position effective immediately." Another followed. Seconded. Susan didn't speak. She didn't shout. She just sat there, eyes burning holes into Alex's chest as if trying to set him ablaze with her stare alone. But the fire was out, and her reign was over. Almost. Because what Susan did next, no one could have seen coming. The vote was unanimous. Susan Whitmore was officially removed from her position as HOA president. The announcement triggered no celebration, only silence. The kind of silence that comes after a storm, when the destruction is still being counted. She stood slowly, face pale but unreadable, and left the community center without a word. No rage, no protest, just the quiet dignity of someone who'd lost everything, or pretended to. Alex didn't trust it, not for a second. The next morning, a white envelope sat on his doorstep. No return address, no markings. Inside was a single typed note. "Did you really think I didn't plan for this?" Attached was a copy of the deed to his lakefront cabin, but the name on it wasn't Alex. It was Susan Whitmore. Confused, Alex rushed to the county recorder's office. After an hour of tense waiting and urgent requests, the clerk returned with a printout that turned his blood cold. 2 weeks before the fire, a quitclaim deed had been filed, transferring ownership of Alex's property to Susan. Forged, filed, and processed. He was no longer the legal owner of his own home. Impossible, he whispered. But it was real. The signature on the document was sloppy, but it passed through unnoticed in the system. Susan had exploited a loophole in the recorder's old filing process, timing it perfectly before launching her campaign to break him. It wasn't about burning the boathouse. It was about owning everything he rebuilt. Alex had proof it was forged, but the legal process would take months, possibly years, and until then, she technically held claim. And the final insult. The HOA bylaws she'd written allowed previous board presidents to reclaim seized private amenities if deemed abandoned or derelict during property disputes. In other words, she could take his rebuilt dock, his land, even his mailbox, and make it hers again. Unless he found the one piece Susan never thought anyone would touch. The old ledger. Hidden in the sealed records Marla had passed him was a second book, a black ledger listing every illicit payment Susan had taken. Kickbacks, fake fines, and vendor bribes stretching back 12 years. With names, amounts, dates. Alex knew what he had to do. He uploaded the entire file to a private website, then sent the link, along with copies of the forged deed and the voice recording, to every homeowner, the local newspaper, the state zoning board, and finally, the district attorney. 2 days later, Susan was arrested for fraud, forgery, extortion, and conspiracy. The lake was quiet again. Alex stood on what was once his dock, now under reconstruction, as workers installed new pilings. He watched the sunset bleed across the water, peaceful for the first time in weeks. Then his phone buzzed. Blocked number. A voicemail. He played it. Nice move, Porter. But we're just getting started. The HOA isn't one person. It's a system. And you just made it bleed. Click. Alex stared at the lake, heart pounding. Because maybe Susan wasn't the only monster on the board.